Good evening, councillors, officers and members of the public. Welcome to this evening's planning committee. I will just run through some housekeeping rules. Should the fire alarm sound, please follow the lead of our officers and exit the building on their instruction and congregate where indicated at the front of the building so we can make sure that everyone is accounted for. Do not use the lifts, thank you. Please ensure that mobile phones are either set to silent or switched off for the duration of the meeting. The meeting is being recorded and you may be visible on camera. If this is an issue, please let one of the officers present know of your concerns. Protocol for the meeting. I will now run through the protocol for the members and public participation of the rules of debate. Please note that the chair's ruling during the debate will be final. The planning officer will introduce the item relating to the planning application and summarise the main points. When the presentation has been completed, I will then invite members of the public who have registered to speak on an item to address the meeting. If you have registered to speak, I will introduce you by name and invite you to step forward. You will have 3 minutes. Members of the committee will then be given the opportunity to ask questions or to clarify statements. The item will then be moved and seconded and debated before the vote taken. Right, we'll move on to item 1. Any apologies?
I've not received any apologies.
Okay, thank you. And have we got any substitute members? Okay, thank you. For the information of the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of June 2025 will be presented for the next meeting on the 9th of July 2025. Item 2, members' declaration of interest. We are aware that members of the committee have received information in relation to the following: NW-24-00486-FUL. Members have been sent an email with an attachment from the agent outlining the additional information provided to the council following the March Planning Committee. This has been publicly uploaded to the case file. NW-24-00138-OUT. Members have been sent an email dated 17/6/2025 with an attached briefing document providing further information on the next phase of the Glenvale Park development. This has been publicly uploaded to the case file. I'm now going to ask members generally to confirm that they are coming to the meeting with an open mind and have not predetermined any of the applications. Okay. Is there any declarations to be made? No declarations to be made? Okay. Has any of the members undertaken any formal site visits on their own accord?
I'm predetermined on the second application, the battery store.
So you're making a declaration?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so obviously you're making a declaration, you won't be able to vote on it, and yeah, okay. Yeah, and you'll have to leave the room as well, if that's okay. Yeah. Right, so we'll move on to item 3, planning application NW-24-00486 FUL. That is land area 26A, Stanton Cross, Mill Road, Wellingborough, demolition of an existing building and the provision of development comprising of 47 residential dwellings. Yeah, I will now invite Wayne Campbell for planning to speak, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a full planning application that proposes the demolition of the existing building, commercial building on the site, the provision for 47 dwellings and associated works, including communal amenity space, associated car and cycle parking, waste and recycling storage at land area 26A, Stanton Cross. The site is bounded by roads to the north, west and south of the river to the east. There are residential parcels to the north under construction and the town country park to the east beyond the river.
Wayne, can you just move the microphone close to your mouth, please?
Hello? Is that better? Is that better? During the Planning Committee on the 19th of March this year, members resolved to defer the application to enable further information to be obtained in relation to contamination risks and mitigation, a parking strategy which was to be provided by the applicant, and a response from the Council's Waste Management Officer in relation to tracking of refuge vehicles, and a response from the highway engineers on the parking strategy provided by the applicant. Following the deferment of the application, the applicant submitted the further information requested, and this has meant that it can now come back to the Planning Committee. Full details of the information provided has been outlined in the officer's update report. Highways, the Waste Management Team and Wellingborough Town Council were reconsulted upon receipt of the additional information. Members will see from the update report that consideration of the new information by Highways, Wellingborough Town Council and the Waste Management Team have all confirmed that they've got no objections to the proposal. I'll just go through some slides so you can see the site. This is an aerial view showing the site. The site's marked in red. See round here. Ooh, that's quite large. These are existing old commercial units which are listed. This is land known as adjoining land parcel which is currently under construction. Mill Road runs along here, goes over the railway line, crosses over the new road here which serves the development, goes past the development site, then runs down towards the river here, and it served the existing or the previous commercial use there. Those commercial uses are still there, they're not being used though. This is a red line showing the site in a little bit more detail. You can see that's Mill Road there. Ooh, just there. So that's where you've just looked. And the adjoining parcel of land which is under construction is this parcel here. Why is it not moving on? This plan shows the Stanton Cross development. This is from one of the master plan documents we use for the Stanton Cross. This is the Stanton Cross development as a whole. And this gives an indication as to where this parcel of land is in relation to the rest of Stanton Cross. The green areas you can see are on the map are all areas of open space. So you've got just to the east of the site, you've got the country park, which when you'll see one of the photos, it's there in place. The yellow is the development areas. So you can see the parcel is just over here. It is just within the Stanton Cross development. This is the proposed ground floor plan. The development is split between apartment blocks on this side here of 4 to 5 stories in height with 3-story townhouses along this area here. It's served by a single access road that comes off Mill Road, comes in, comes to a turning head, and to allow vehicles to enter and leave in forward gear. And this is the tracking plan which the applicant provided following the deferment of the last planning committee. You see the tracking plan shows that refuge vehicle can access and turn and leave the site in forward gear. Refuge storage areas for the apartments are in here and here, to allow access straight for refuge vehicles as they enter the site. You also see here, this is the car parking. They've got undercroft car parking for the apartments. So you've got parking under the building here with some additional parking along the front here. The apartments have parking to the front, not the apartments, the townhouses, sorry, have parking to the front of the units there. This is the east elevation, so these are the townhouses. So this would be the view you'd see from either the country park or the river. If you stood at the river, you can see the apartments are at the back there as well. So that's the back of the townhouses. This is the apartment block. So this would be the view you would see from within the site itself. You'd see that's the access into the car park there. And then this is the view from the west. So this would be the view you'd see from the road, from Roundhouse Way, by the roundabout, dropping down to Townhouse Way. Sorry about that. So this is an illustrative view. This is from the roundabouts. So you've got Roundhouse Way down here, and you've got Driver's Way, there, and you've got Roundhouse Way there. And there's those existing commercial or former commercial buildings. So this would be the view you would see from the main road. You can see that you've got 5 stories at this point, and then 4 stories here, and then the townhouses are 3 stories. And then this is an illustrative view from the east, looking for the backs of the townhouses and the apartments. Now this slide gives an indication of the adjoining site, which is currently under construction. So you can see here, these units next to Mill Road site are 4 stories, dropping down to 3 stories and then 2 stories. So the 4-story, 5-story on the site that you're currently considering is an appropriate height. Now these are photographs of the site. You can see the land parcel there, which is currently under construction. That's the adjoining units which are being built. Mill Road is, as you can see here, it's shown Mill Road, and then the application site is over here on the right-hand side. This is a view similar to what you've just looked a little bit further away. You've got the application site on the right and the currently constructing buildings on land parcel 27 on the left-hand side, and you can just see the edge of the former commercial units listed buildings on the left as well. Now this is looking back along Drive Way. You can see the listed buildings in the middle there. You can also see the land parcel 27, which is being built at the moment, and you can also see what's left of the former commercial building which is on the site. We understand from the applicant that it burnt down about 20 years ago. We as a council have got no evidence to disprove that. It has been considered as an abandoned use. It's very overgrown. It's to say it's a shell is really sort of pushing it. It's got no roof. It's only got 3 walls, to be perfectly honest. Now this is a view. You can see this in the foreground. You can see the country park. So that stretches all the way along the in between the houses you can see in the foreground or the distance, and the houses that I took the photographs from. So that's the extent of the public park that is being developed on the Stanton Cross. And you can also see the height of the land parcel 27, and you can see the application site which is next door. And that's going back to the illustrative view for the development. With the confirmation that no objections are raised following the reconsultation, it's considered that the additional information has addressed the concerns which were raised by the committee on the 19th of March. The recommendation is that permission be approved as outlined in the officer's report and the updated conditions and the signing of the Section 106 agreement as outlined in the officer's report. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. I will now ask Sheenan Okoti to come and speak, please.
Good evening. Can you hear me? So my name is Sharina Cote, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Residents Association in Stanton Cross. I am the chair of this Residents Association. As residents, we are deeply concerned about the pace of which additional housing is being brought forward in Stanton Cross while critical infrastructure continues to lag behind. This is further demonstrated by a petition which has, as of 6:47 this evening, got to 647 residents having signed it to say they are unhappy with the infrastructure that has not been delivered. This has been further reported on by the Telegraph this evening, and as it stands today, we have been advised that there are pending protests in Stanton Cross. As a result, specifically, we would like to raise the following 3 questions. 1, retail units. What infrastructure will be in place to support this planning application? Context, residents were assured that retail provision would accompany early phases of the development, yet we continue to see new housing without the delivery of retail amenities. What measures are in place to ensure the application is not approved in isolation, but aligned with delivery of supporting infrastructure? Question 2, school provision. What is the current plan for secondary school infrastructure to support this application and future phases? While we are aware of the proposals for primary school provision, there is still no clarity on when secondary school provisions will come forward. Without it, families are left without viable local options. Point 3, question, community centre. When will this be built? The absence of a dedicated community facility continues to hinder the cohesion and well-being of our neighbourhood. This facility is a key part of the original vision for Stanton Cross, and residents would like firm delivery timescales. Overarching concern, we are increasingly worried that the housing is being prioritised while critical infrastructure has not been delivered. This pattern is unsustainable. Stanton Cross is already under strain. Approving further phases without guaranteeing delivery of planned amenities will only worsen the situation and erode public confidence. We respectfully urge the committee to seek answers to these questions and consider broader impact of the existing community before any further applications are granted. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. May I ask you to stay there for a second? Committee, can I ask for questions of clarification, please? Nothing? Okay then, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, for the purpose of debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution, Meeting Procedures Rules 19.2 and 19.1, I will move the recommendation stated within the report that it is summarised on page 6.1. The powers be delegated to officers to grant planning permission subject to the completion of Section 106 legal agreement and conditions. 2, if the Section 106 is not in place by the deadline set, the powers be delegated to refuse planning permission. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor. Would like to start the debate, please. Councillor?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. Okay, this is a small part of a massive development. I mean, you saw members on the screen earlier the size of the Stanton Cross development, and I certainly completely understand the lady, the chair of the Stanton Cross Residents Group, who just spoke to us, and her concerns about the provision of necessary infrastructure, whether it be retail, whether it be education, and obviously the secondary school particularly, I absolutely get that, and the community centre. Of course, this is a relatively small application in a strategic whole. I do think, however, that the questions that were raised ought to be addressed and answered. Chair, the other thing which particularly concerns me, and I know it was brought up by the Planning Committee South when they looked at it some time ago, is parking provision. There are 47 units. There is provision of 47 parking spaces, 5 of which seem to be delegated as blue badge parking, and there are 3 visitors' spots with time restrictions to stop people misusing them. While I appreciate that this development is in a sustainable location with good transport links and good footpath access to the centre of Wellingborough. Nevertheless, that parking provision is very, very, very tight. And, you know, how could, you know, visitors turning up there, it will just most likely have nowhere to park. And I do think that's a problem. I think that is, you know, it seriously challenges the viability of this development. The development itself, yes, I mean, it seems sensible, but it is fairly high density. I don't think that the parking provision is correct, and the 106 agreement with regard to the viability of the scheme is certainly going to be something which I know is being looked at carefully. So while I appreciate that this the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the completion of 106, I also note that it is finely balanced. And I'll be interested to hear from colleagues on the committee whether some of the obvious challenges to this development will overturn the obvious benefits that, you know, another 47 units will bring to the growth agenda that we have. The problem here, of course, is whether or not, and it will be a question of balance, the viability matter and the parking matter are material planning considerations strong enough. So I will be interested to hear officers' response to my comments on this, and obviously comments of colleagues on the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, David. Have we anybody else that'd like to speak? Dennis?
Yeah, going back to that about the parking, I mean, it seems to be an assumption made that each resident will only have one car. And we all know that a lot of residents these days have one or more cars. So that would maybe jam the place up. It seems to be just that assumption of just one car. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. Quite clearly, I think I would agree with previous comments that the parking situation here is not good. Not at all. Pardon me. I was at an apartment block in Kettering recently, fairly new build. The parking spaces were on a one-to-one basis or one-for-one basis, but the parking spaces were so narrow that it would be nigh on impossible for two motorists to park their cars and comfortably get out. My suspicion would be that this is the same. Also, with 47 units, 5 blue badge spaces, it leaves 42. It's highly unlikely, as I think Councillor Brackenbury mentioned, it's highly unlikely that each unit will have one car only. So I think that it's likely that the parking arrangement will be woeful. Also, the lady who spoke from Stanton Cross quite clearly and rightly said the infrastructure is badly lacking, very badly indeed. And I witnessed this at Little Stannion some years ago when I was councillor for Little Stannion, where they clambered to build houses, promising to build a little mini shopping mall with a bistro and restaurant, etc. And what the poor people ended up with was a porta cabin run by a local grocer. That was all they had. And it just didn't materialise. And I fear for this sort of development also, that the builder, the developer is so busy making money actually, that the infrastructure will go by the way. I would like to see some sort of guarantee that the developer will contribute other than SO 106 money. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, Councillor James?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would echo some of the concerns about the parking. It's well down on what would normally be expected of this site. Though I would qualify that it is next to the train station, so potentially it can attract commuters. So there might not be such a need, and the cycling provision storage is above what is would be required. One of my other concern is regarding the affordable housing. There is no affordable housing provided as part of this development, and that's a concern, and whether that's being provided elsewhere, that it can be effectively offset. That's not clear. And I know financial viability is a concern with this development, although I think I saw a figure of 18% profit. I don't know if that's a legitimate market rate, but affordable housing provision is one of the concerns I have, as well as the parking provision.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor?
Yes, if I may again, please, Chair.
Yeah, sure.
I have concern also about the potential for contamination, or the potential contamination in existence. It was, as I recall from the original application, there was very great concern about the potential for contaminated land. I wonder if any of the officers could inform us if any mitigation has been put in place here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ben?
Thank you, Chair. So I kind of echo pretty much all of the points that have been made in this room now. I think, you know, we're all fairly aligned on those. I would have hoped to have asked a question to the developer if they had have spoken earlier on the viability side of things. I fully understand that those have been tested through planning and you know, they've been accepted by the council in their format, but I would have liked to ask if the developer was open to potentially a viability review at some stage in the development. You know, whether that be, I think the benchmark is 20% for a viable development. So if there was any kind of, if they were making profits over that, is there any way to claw some of that surplus profit back to be redirected into council-run affordable schemes or social housing in whatever format we decided that was needed? So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Have we any other speakers?
I was just saying, I'd be quite interested to get the officer's view on that, if that's okay for the room. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to wait till everybody spoke, and then we'll bring the officers back for comment. Yeah. So, have we got any other questions or clarifications? In that case, can I bring you back for any for clarifications on the points raised, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll start with the speaker. With regards to the facilities being provided on Stanton Cross. There are facilities to be provided on Stanton Cross, as the speaker quite correctly pointed out. She is quite correct. There is a primary school which is up and running at the moment. We have granted planning permission for the neighbourhood centre. I think that was granted planning permission last year. So the developer is in the process of getting tenders together and seeking occupiers for the neighbourhood centre. So that is something which will come on board. I am personally dealing with another application for residential and a smaller neighbourhood centre. So the developer is also looking to pursue the smaller neighbourhood centre as well in terms of the small retail shops. In terms of the secondary school site has been allocated in the master plan. So the site is allocated in the master plan. And it is something that which will come forward. And we are in negotiations with the master planners at the moment with regards to that particular facility. In terms of the community centre, again, that's the same. We are in negotiations and discussions with the applicant with regards to the community centre. So the developer, I appreciate what the speaker's saying, and I'd be the same if I was her as well. You'd see all these houses, but nothing else coming along. They are coming on stream. It's just that they take a certain amount of time, and they come later in terms of the residential, but I can assure members here and also the resident that the facilities are to be provided. Okay?
Thank you.
With regards to parking, yes, I can hear what the members are saying. I understand what you're saying. The lack of car parking is the need. That's the need for the parking management plan. Parking will be controlled, as I understand from the agents, would be controlled on site by a monitoring organisation. Residents will be informed when they move in that they have one parking space and there are 3 visitors being provided. This is not an unusual sort of situation. We have granted planning permission for the same sort of situation on adjoining sites where the parking doesn't meet with the standards. There is a parking strategy plan in operation, and it does, we feel it will work. So yes, I understand what you're saying, members are saying with regards to parking, but there is a way forward. We have consulted with our highways colleagues. Our highways colleagues have looked at it in detail, and they have accepted that it is an appropriate way forward in terms of the application. I think, as Councillor said across there, the way this is a very sustainable site. It is very close to the railway station. There is an excess of our parking standards in terms of cycle, and there are routes around Stanton Cross for cycling. So it is a very sustainable development. So we feel that the parking, yes, it is low, but we feel that it is acceptable for this site. In terms of the affordable housing, that is tied up with regards to the viability. When the applicant submitted the application, they openly said that there is a viability issue on this site, and one of the issues that they would not be able to provide was affordable housing. If we required them to provide affordable housing, the scheme would not come forward. The site would sit there empty. The site cannot afford affordable housing along with all other Section 106. The application was supported by a detailed viability assessment. Now, that's a financial document which the applicant submits to prove that they can't afford, or the development can't afford, to provide certain things on the site. That was considered by an independent assessor, and the independent assessor advised the council that the viability assessment was correct and that the council could not require affordable housing. I know, I can hear what you say and what you're looking for, but the scheme cannot provide affordable housing on the site. I understand from the applicant that they would be open to a clause in terms of a reassessment of the Section 106. So we could start to discuss that with the applicant, so they are open to that. In terms of contamination, yes, it was raised. It was an issue which was raised at the last committee. In my update sheet, I provided a detailed assessment of the site. The applicant provided a very detailed land contamination and conditions report for the site. This was considered by the council's environmental health department, and the environmental health department has confirmed that they've got no objections subject to conditions. It's not unusual for a site like this to come forward and the environmental health department consider the land condition or the land assessment and put a condition on requiring details once the development starts. The site is no doubt has some contaminations. It is a former commercial site, but this is a normal, appropriate way to deal with the application, and there is no objections from the Environmental Protection and Environmental Health Department with regards to land contamination. I think that's it, unless I've missed something. I think I've covered everything that got raised.
Thank you very much. Can I take any other questions? Chair, Councillor.
Just quickly, they say there's going to be a parking scheme enforced in there. Do we have any guarantees that that's going to be going ahead? Because I've seen it where they say, yeah, we're going to do this, and as soon as they're built, they go, oh no, whatever, they're a big argument, and there's none of it. So is there any kind of guarantees that that's going to be enforced?
Could I ask you to come back on that one, please?
Yeah, certainly, Chair. Yes, it's a requirement as granting planning permission that the parking management scheme which they've submitted is implemented as part of the scheme. We as officers can assess and make sure that the parking management scheme, we can ask questions, we can require details of the management company and require them to provide evidence that they're actually doing that if we consider it necessary.
Thank you. Any, Ben?
Thank you, Chair. I'd be interested in understanding a little bit more the mechanisms of how the viability review could end up working potentially, and if you've had any conversations with the developer on what their thoughts and feelings are on what the outcomes of that could be, should there be determination that they've gone, you know, producing more profit than the initial viability assessment is produced. Thank you.
My understanding is from the applicant or the agents who sat at the back of the room to say that yes, they are willing to enter into those discussions, and that's as far as I can tell you at the moment. So that is something we will be discussing with them, and we will be looking to put that into the Section 106. Okay.
Thank you.
Chair, if members were minded to vote in favour of the application to include the review mechanism, you'd have to move a motion to include the review mechanism, to which there need to be a seconder and a vote, and that would then need to be delegated to officers to discuss with the applicant, because that review mechanism isn't currently part of the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Have we got any other questions or clarifications? David?
Thank you, Chair. Just one question, since it may very well be. I mean, I see that this is actually it's a bit of a windfall site in the strategic sense, and I can see why it's coming forward. I'm still very concerned about less than 10% of the units, sort of just over 5%, having visitors parking. And I have a feeling that is going to be a mess, because, you know, how do you know that one of the 3 visitors parking is going to be available unless there's some sort of Ringo or pre-booking? It just isn't really adequate. And I do understand it's in a sustainable location, and I welcome that. And I welcome, you know, that it's got good bus links. I welcome its accessibility to the railway station and the footpath and footpaths into town. And that's all very much to be commended. But I have a feeling this parking management scheme is threatening to be a mess, and it will be very difficult to enforce. As far as the application overall is concerned, I know that the developers of Stanton Cross are in consultation with delivering some of the infrastructure which was so eloquently spoken about earlier, and this development isn't necessarily going to make the difference to the delivery of the strategic infrastructure. So I'm sort of not against the development, but I think that there are issues with it that need to be ironed out before perhaps it goes for planning permission.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Okay. Just before we go into the vote, I'm going to ask members if they wish to move a motion to include the 106 review. Seconder? Okay. Yep. We've got that motion.
Thank you. So it's probably a good opportunity for me to just clarify what we're expecting to do as part of that review mechanism. So when we have a section 106, we can come back and look where there's been a change in circumstances. One of those change in circumstances might be the passage of time, or something else has happened, which we look again at the costs of the development and the level of return the development expects, to see whether it's different from what we've got before us today in terms of the independently tested viability assessment. We do not have a firm commitment from the applicant this evening that there will definitely be one. What we have is advice that they're happy to look into one. So the choice for you as a committee is, would you refuse this application if you did not have that review mechanism in place? If that's your conclusion, then you can limit the delegated authority you're giving to officers to make sure that we go away and seek to secure that review mechanism within the 106. You can give us full delegation as your officers to take advice as necessary to consider what time horizon we would build into the 106. So generally speaking, what we want to secure is that if time has passed and the development has not come forward, that is a good opportunity to look again to see whether there has been a difference in the inputs to the viability assessment. But if the development is secured and goes forward very quickly, there's very unlikely to be any material change in circumstances as is captured in the independently reviewed viability assessment. So our recommendation to you is that we look at an indicative time period of 2 years post the implementation of the development, so that if the development has not been completed 2 years after it's been commenced, we can then use that as a indicative trigger point for the viability assessment to make sure we're getting the right balance between making sure that if there's a change in circumstances we can capture those, but also making sure the developer gets on and builds these in a reasonable time frame, that we're not imposing additional restrictions upon them that would be unreasonable if there's been no change in circumstances. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, any more questions? James?
Yeah, it's just one point. Obviously, this is a little pocket of land. It's got derelict buildings on, and it's a bit of an eyesore currently. So developing would take it into a better state than what might be left for. Fly tipping is something we're often plagued with on these vacant plots. So that's something else in favour of the development, I feel.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? Ben?
I would just say that personally, with what Alex has just said there, I'd be happy with moving that to be delegated to the officer to have the discussion with the developers to get the best outcomes. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Anybody else like to comment? No? Can I ask if the mover and seconder are happy for the review mechanism to be set with a trigger point of 2 years after permission? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You happy? Well, I think we've had a good debate on that. So I think we are now going to go take a vote. Just want to make sure that you're clear on what you voted for. And also we're going to put a recommendation of subject to the 106 mechanism being put in place with a trigger of 2 years from permission being granted, plus points that powers be delegated to officers to grant planning permission subject to the completion of Section 106 legal agreement and conditions, and item 2, if the Section 106 is not taken place by the deadline set in that the powers be delegated to refuse planning permission. So I will put that for a vote now. Yeah, can you please use your cards as well, please? Sorry, the vote has been carried then, so thank you. So we're moving on to item 4, planning application NW-23-00360 FUL, Grendon Lakes Main Road, Grendon Battery Energy Storage System.
Yes, sorry, 1 second, Chair. So the council needs to leave the room before we commence this item.
Oh yes, sorry, Darren, you need to leave.
We will collect you after the end of this item.
And officer, has he gone? It's Wayne again. It's Wayne again, please.
Yes, sorry, Chair. I've lost my slide, so can you bear with me for a second?
Sure. Sorry? Yeah, sure. Apologies, members of the public. We've just had a few IT problems, so we'll be back at it as quick as we can. Thank you very much. You okay now then, Wayne? Right, would you like to carry on? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Please accept my apologies. I lost my slides from my system and I couldn't find them, so my colleague is going to do the slides for me. This application seeks full planning permission for a battery energy storage system with associated infrastructure including access, drainage and landscaping. The purpose of the battery energy storage system is to provide a means of allowing electricity from the grid to be imported and stored at times of low demand and high generation, which can then be exported back into the grid at times of high demand and system stress. The application is brought to the committee due to objections being received from the parish councils and more than 10 neighbour objections. Key parts of the proposal comprise the following. The battery storage facility, which is a 49.99 megawatts storage facility, comprising 15 full-size shipping containers modified to accommodate the batteries. These are 13 metres long, 5 metres wide and 3.9 metres in height, and there are 15 half-size shipping containers which also contain the inverters and the transformers, all necessary for the conversion, the storage of the batteries and the energy. Earthworks and installation of concrete bases upon loose gravel platforms will also be provided to support each of the shipping containers. Switch and control rooms, each 13 metres long and 5 metres wide and 3.9 metres high. There'll be one substation, which is 17.4 metres wide and 46 metres long, with equipment of up to 6 metres in height of a maximum height. Mesh security fencing of 2.5 metres will be provided around the site for security. There will also be removal of mounds and trees within the site and the planting of native woodlands as screening on the edge. This is phase 2 of battery storage. There was a phase 1 which was granted under planning permission in 17/00602/full. Now the site occupies, you can see the site marked in red here. To the left or the west is the National Grid substation. The applicant has advised that this is a phase 2. It's necessary as additional demand has been calculated as a backup for the existing battery storage system. The site occupies a part of the plot which has been previously used as a motocross site and covers an area of approximately 3.12 hectares. There's a series of mounds which have been created to provide for the motocross, and these are the mounds which would be removed from the site. The site currently remains as an area of unmanaged plot, not in agricultural use, but a rough grassland or scrub. The Grendon National Grid substation lies immediately to the west, as I mentioned, and behind a belt of trees, while to the east and south lies agricultural land. Access to the site is from the existing Grendon Lakes access track from the main road in Grendon. If we just go through the slides, so if you move to the next slide, please. This is the slide showing the layout of the development. You can see the way the porta cabins and storage shipping containers will be laid out on the site. You can also see the landscaping buffers being provided around the edges of the site to help screen the development. Okay. That's a closer view. That's the block plan, so you can see where the transformer and inverters will be stored. The containers housing the batteries will be located as highlighted on the plan. The substation is marked to the north along with the control room and the switch building. Okay. That's a detail of the proposed substation. Okay. And that's a cross view of the substation. You can see that the maximum height is 5.4 metres, but you can see it's not a big block at 5.4 metres, it's the sort of antennas on the top. Okay. That's the transformer and inverters. That's in one of the smaller sort of half shipping containers. And that's the control room. That'll be in one of the shipping containers. Shipping container is a shipping container. I think we all know what a shipping container looks like. Okay. And again, this gives an indication of where the outer electrical equipment, the local transformer, is to be located, and also where the switchgear and buildings will be located. And this gives an indication of the colours of the buildings to be used. So there'll be a mix of either British Radiation green or a grey colour. Okay. Now this is a cross-section. This is quite a useful plan for you to have a look at. You can see the cross-section across the site, and you can see the heights of the building and the proposed shipping containers compared to the landscaping provided on the boundaries of the site. And you can also see on the top one, on the left-hand side, there's also a small mound created as well. You can see the landscaping is there to help reduce and screen the development from the views from outside. And in considering the application, the landscape officer has accepted and considered that there is no objections to the proposal from a landscaping point of view. Okay. This is the route for construction traffic. You can just about make it out. It's the red line you can see sort of travelling through the plan there. Again, the construction traffic access has been considered by the highways engineers and considered acceptable. Bearing in mind the construction is for a limited period. During the working operation of the site, traffic will be minimal and not HGV, so it's the construction which uses the HGVs. Okay. This is the location of the hard standing to be provided by the fire service. Members will see in the report there is a lot of concern with regards to fires. I think the concern being raised is the fact that batteries can get hot. There's also concern with regards to fires. There is a dedicated area for the fire service. The fire service have considered the application, and you'll see in the report that there are no objections raised from the fire service with regards to the application. The applicant has also confirmed that the threshold levels of the batteries is a lot lower than could cause a fire issue in terms of any danger in terms on the site. You can see that is outlined in the committee report. Okay. This is the photograph. This shows the main entrance off Grendon Road, or the main road off Grendon, sorry. Okay. And then this is a view of the site looking west towards the national grid. You can actually see the existing landscaping, see how effective the screening is. And you can see that the screening would act as a very effective screen around the site. Okay. And again, this is a view of the site looking towards the operating battery storage site. That was phase one. You can see that the landscaping does effectively screen the development. Okay. And this is a view of the site showing the operation of the existing battery storage in the distance. Okay. And this is an aerial view which shows the location of the application site you're considering at the moment. That's marked in red. And you can see the area blue is the operating phase one battery storage facility. Key considerations of the application are all outlined in the report in detail. Statutory consultees have confirmed no objections to the proposal. Members will see there are outstanding objections remain from the parish council and neighbours, and notwithstanding the objections raised, these have been covered and addressed in the officer's report and comments from the technical consultees. Whilst it is noted that concern has raised in relation to the Green Hill solar farm proposal, this application for the battery storage is a separate application. And while the solar farm has yet to be determined by the Government Office, the applicant has confirmed in writing that this site is not connected to that particular development. The applicant has advised that the energy comes from the national grid and the battery energy storage site will act as an energy bank, in that they doesn't generate electricity itself, but stores it from wherever sources are available or most economical in terms of the time. And energy is support to... The ultimate source of the electricity will depend upon the local energy mix, the grid conditions, etc. The battery energy storage are seen as part of renewable energy solutions as they allow intermittent energy generated from renewable sources like solar, wind or hydro to be stored and put back into the grid. In times of demand, the grid often relies on gas-fired peaking plants, though batteries can be used to replace these and reduce carbon emissions. As the battery energy storage would take energy from the grid at times of peak generation, the applicant has advised that they don't need to be connected to the solar farm at Green Hill, and that the development would not be connected or draw energy directly from that site. In weighing up the pros and cons of the proposal, it is considered that there are numerous benefits that weigh in favour of the development, all of which have been set out in the officer's report in detail. The provision of the battery storage facility will support the move towards decarbonised power system by delivering the infrastructure that can respond to fluctuations in supply and demand from renewable energy sources and provide energy to support growth in North Northampton and nationally. The development will provide grid stability, will assist in reducing emissions and improve energy security. As outlined in the officer's report, there are no unacceptable highways, contamination, flood risk, fire risk, ecology, landscape, heritage, archaeological crime, noise or amenity issues that have been identified that would prevent the development from coming forward. The proposed development is considered to comply with policies in the local plan, and there are no material considerations identified that would weigh in favour to refuse the application. It's recommended that this application be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the officer's report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have some speakers on this one. We have Dr. Phil Anthony. Would you like to come and speak? You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, councillors. I'm a resident of Grendon, and I have reason to believe that I speak on behalf of many of the residents. We oppose this application because the need for the development is not established. Statera already have a 49.9 megawatt BESS facility, and specific data on its utilisation is not available. Statera are not generating electricity and hence, presumably, speculating on future value obtained from manipulating the demand for storage. Secondly, the concerns about fire risks are real and significant. It's well known that fires at BESS units can take many days to suppress and take millions of gallons of water. A fire at this facility necessitates a huge impervious containment system, or bunding, and not the proposed attenuation plans. Otherwise, contaminated water will breach the structure and enter watercourses, which will affect the River Nen and its special protected sites in the immediate vicinity and damage the local flora and fauna for years to come. As evidence of this concern, please note the fire which took place at the Statera installation in Tilbury in February of this year. We understand that the fire took 25 hours to extinguish, required 23 appliances, and that further monitoring was required. In addition to this, although the water used to douse the conflagration was bunded on site, our information is that the contaminated water has yet to be removed and disposed of safely. Statera should be asked what the plan is for safe removal of contaminated water. The implications for Grendon in light of this are obvious. The developers have failed to provide information about the battery manufacturer and specifications at Thurrock. They have merely held one online meeting about safety at 4:45 p.m. last Friday. This council has a clear duty to select developers who are transparent and responsible. Other potential developments and cumulative impacts. Statera refused to recognise that the NSIP proposal for a 500 megawatt storage at the same location by Green Hill Solar is part of the cumulative development issue and should be fully recognised by the council. Lastly, the developer has shown scant interest in or concern for the local community. No public meetings
Sorry,
have been
I'm going to have to
held.
stop you there.
No community
Sorry.
support offered. We
Thank-
request
sorry,
that
I'm
you
gonna have to stop you
decline
there.
this proposal.
If you could just stay there, because we'd like to ask some questions, if that's okay. Any questions for clarification? Councillor Des?
I hear what you say there about the company seem to be reluctant to give you the details of either, you know, power, where the power is coming for the storage unit, or how it's going to be used. It just seems to be one of these a what if sort of product that's coming out.
What's the question, Councillor?
Well, the question is that we don't seem to know, you know, where the power is coming storage, whether it's green power, whether it's gas-produced power, whether it's electricity power, you know, normal power that's been developed.
Councillor, we need to be asking questions of clarification on points that the speaker
Okay.
has risen.
Right.
Any other clarification questions? No. Thank you, Vu. The next speaker is Martin Smith. Martin Smith.
Restart the clock. Thank you, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Martin Smith. I'm a parish councillor in Grendon and speak on behalf of Grendon Parish Council. As stated earlier by the officer, Grendon Parish Council objected to these proposals when they originally came out in July 2023, and a further objection was raised in April 2025. There are a long list of issues that reasons for our objections, which I won't go into. They were partly addressed in a response from Stratera that was added to the planning portal as recently as last week, and have been partly addressed by mitigating factors introduced in the suggested conditions from the officers. However, we still have a number of areas of concern. I'd echo a lot of the comments of the previous speaker about the concern about flood risk, fire risk. The Parish Council had a meeting with the Deputy Chief Fire Officer of Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue earlier this year to address the concern about the fire risk. And although he was very helpful, I would have to say he was not far from convincing over Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue's ability to deal with a fire at a battery energy storage site, and has no experience of dealing with such a fire previously. In addition, we have serious concerns over the flood risk. I think in the original flood risk assessment, it was determined to be low risk. That was an assessment carried out in 2023, which I found surprising at the time. Since then, the site has flooded on a number of occasions, most significantly in September 2024, when a large number of houses in the village were flooded. At the same time, the proposed site was under floodwater for approximately 1 week. So I don't accept that it is a low flood risk. So the potential potent combination of flooding and fire, should a fire occur at the time when the site is flooded, causes the residents of Grendon considerable concern. Also, we're concerned about the cumulative impact of this and other proposals. As mentioned earlier, we already have a substantial national grid substation.
Have to stop you there.
Sorry?
I'm going to have to stop you, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
If you just stay there, we'll just see if there's any clarification questions. Okay. Any clarification questions? Nothing? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. And we'll call the next speaker, which is Martin Blunden.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello, councillors. My name is Martin Blunden. I'm a Best Fire Safety Specialist. I've been involved in the fire sector for 34 years, 30 years as an operational firefighter, retired as a Chief Fire Officer of one of the largest fire services in the world in September 22. Delivered a number of national projects for Her Majesty's Government, as was awarded the Queen's Fire Service Medal in the New Year's Honours List in January 2021. I understand the concerns that there are with lithium batteries when we see problems with electric scooters, skateboards, e-bikes and scooters. However, what we're talking about is fundamentally different technology. If you look at Apple, there are 1.4 billion iPhones in the world, all of which have lithium batteries. Most are charged up at night in our bedrooms and then discharged during the day as we use them. We trust Apple's technology as they have the right safety controls to stop the phone being overcharged or getting too hot. If you take Apple engineering and multiply it many, many times, that is now the level of engineering excellence which is in the technology that Statera are proposing to use. Each battery will comply with a Universal Laboratories Code UL 9540, which is the highest international standard. To pass this standard, the battery has to show that fire will not spread from cell to cell. The cabinet design and technology complies to the National Fire Prevention Association NFPA 855 standard, which means the battery management system and monitoring is once again one of the highest international standards. The UK is leading the way with the energy storage, and there are currently 225 sites across the UK and have been in place. The earliest one was 2015. Through me, part of Statera's fire management policy is early and meaningful discussions with the Fire and Rescue Service. And we have a fire liaison framework agreed and in place with Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service, and also with 19 other fire and rescue services across the country. We've enjoyed a series of meetings with Northampton Fire and Rescue Service to ensure the scheme meets their needs and expectations. We took them through the scheme layout, detection systems, as well as how the battery management system instantly shuts down the cabinet and indeed the site if there is anything which is outside the normal parameters. Statera also have their own security and monitoring office, which is operated by real people, which monitors things 24/7 and can remotely shut down the site as well. Having explained the scheme design and safety systems during our discussion with Northampton Fire and Rescue Service, this resulted with them confirming they have no objection to this scheme and application. And you have my assurance that Statera are committed to excellence when it comes to safety, and that is why I'm working with them to ensure they remain best in class in the way that fire risk is managed. Chair.
Thank you. Questions of clarification? David?
Thank you very much, and thank you for your fairly reassuring comments. But one question I am going to ask, if the technology is as foolproof as you suggest, what happened in Tilbury and why was it such a major incident? And could you just take us through what happened there and what steps were taken to rectify?
So exactly as we have done with Northamptonshire, we liaised with Essex Fire and Rescue Service very early in the process. And actually, if you look at the Essex Fire and Rescue Service web page, if you go back to the February date, you'll see a statement from the incident commander about how the incident rolled out in terms of the, I think in paraphrasing, everything happened as it was expected to happen in dealing with a fire on that site. The fault was outside one of the best containers whilst it was under construction. The site hadn't been energised at the time, and the fire and rescue service were called when the fire was discovered. They were on site from 3 fire stations. They were on site for 7 hours, 30 minutes, and at that point they stood it down and then continued to monitor the site for a further 24 hours.
Well, thank you.
Councillor Ben.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much. That was very interesting. I think the only thing that I would like to raise on this point, I know in the agenda items on here, it says that you've been in discussions with Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service, which obviously you mentioned earlier. But is there going to be some workings about a fire or emergency strategy plan specific to this site instead of a general framework?
Yes, there will be, and it's really important. One of the things that we do, so if you grant a permission, or where we've had permission granted before, we work with the local fire and rescue service to do a pre-construction tactical response plan. So everything as construction's happening, then as soon as batteries come on site, then that changes that response plan again. And then once the batteries are energised, we then change the tactical response plan yet again, so that actually the fire and rescue service are involved every stage of the journey. We undertake training with the fire and rescue service and awareness training, so they go onto site so they know what they're looking at. There's, with all commercial buildings in the UK, there's a premises information box that's on the outside of the building. They're red boxes, you may now notice them as you go around. Inside that premises information box will be all the things that they need to do should they attend a site, a fire on any of the Statira sites, in fact, any of our client sites anywhere in the UK.
Councillor Paul.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Can I just ask you, obviously, although they say it isn't a floodplain, I can assure you it is, what does water, if that site floods, what happens?
So the containers on this site will be elevated, so they won't be on the ground, they'll be on a concrete plinth. So there's a flood risk assessment being undertaken to identify which areas of the site are prone to flooding and what category the flooding is. And then the containers themselves will be IP67 rated, which means you can effectively drop them in water and submerge them, and they won't allow water into the container. I completely understand the concern you'd have. We all know that electricity and water really doesn't mix very well. So IP67 rated containers deals with that particular issue.
Okay, so do you have a height from a distance from the water that's the general water height of the lakes, and there's a river and a brook runs through there, you know, to your containers? Because I travel that route a lot for whatever reason, and that quite often the bridges are shut because the water's coming over the bridges. That's the kind of height that gets to. That's my thought.
No, I understand that. So within the application pack, and I can't quote you chapter and verse, but within the application pack, it looked the flood risk assessment and then the engineering drawing of the layout of the containers. You've got a side-on view. Will tell you what the height is of the bottom of the container from the ground to account for any flood impact. So the flood impact would be a 1 in 100 year flood impact plus about 40% for climate change.
Sorry. So we're in a flood situation, and there's a problem, and the fire brigade turn up. Where are they going to go? How are they going to get there?
There's a couple of ways into this. Well, there's a couple of ways into that. I'm working through in my head. So if I look like I'm slowed down, I'm just working through in my head where flood situation and fire. My experience over a very long period of time is I actually really enjoyed floods, or I enjoyed water, because it tended to put out fire. Now with lithium batteries, the water is not going to put out the fire, but it would suppress the any fire spread to any other containers.
Councillor Elgin.
Okay, thank you.
I've got one thought is going on along with the water theme at the moment. What happens if there is a contamination of that water? What happens with that after? Is that going to be left for another generation to clean up?
No, it's a really good question, and actually the person who spoke before me did actually mention that particular issue. So the operational tactics of the Fire and Rescue Service across the whole of the UK is governed by National Operational Guidance. So it's centrally derived operational guidance for a whole range of incidents that they attend. And one of them is electrical installations, and BESS is an electrical installation. It's an energy storage system. It will have a residual current in it, even when it's shut down. Like everything has a residual current in it. It'll only be a couple of volts, but it still is a residual current. The way that the operational tactics work for the Fire and Rescue Service is that you're not putting water on any container that's affected by fire. You're boundary cooling the adjacent containers. Now, if we go back to the previous question about the IP67 rated containers, it's a steel box that doesn't allow water in it. So if you're spraying water onto a steel box, there's no contamination coming off of the steel box. So whilst the attenuation system has been designed for the 1 in 100 year plus 40% flood, let's take the worst case scenario, that water seeps into a brook. Well, there's no water, there's no contamination within that water seeping into the brook. So actually, because the Fire and Rescue Service are not putting water onto the lithium fire. And that's exactly what Essex Fire and Rescue Service did back in February. They did the boundary cooling, is what the professional term for it, and allowed the container to consume itself.
Councillor Frank?
You gave us the reason for the Tilbury fire. What lessons were learned from that, and has anything been put in place to prevent it from happening again?
The discussions are still underway regarding the Tilbury fire. I think one of the early points is, and some learning that's come from across the world in Australia, is actually how you approach construction of BESS full stop, in terms of making sure that suppression and detection systems, there is a way to energise prior to energising the battery itself. And that's something that every single manufacturer is now looking at as a result of that fire, and also one that happened in Australia about 2 years ago.
Councillor Lynn?
Thank you, Chair. Just on the topic of water and flooding, I'd like your opinion, do you think that there needs to be somewhere baked into the fire emergency plan the event that one of these 1 in 100 years plus 40% events does happen, how that's dealt with? So, yeah, thank you.
The way that the fire service approach any incident is not generally looking to it looks at the worst case scenario at all times. So if there's a 0.5% chance of something happening, and that is what they'll train for, that is what National Operational Guidance is there for. So the National Operational Guidance gives you a number of parameters within which you can work, and you can adapt your plan as you go. There's a dynamic risk assessment that every single incident commander is schooled in from a very young age, so that actually, if what you're expecting to see is something completely different, you're able to adapt your tactics accordingly. And I realise I gave you a slightly woolly answer there, but it's a dynamic process dealing with fire.
Any more councillors? Councillor Elgin?
Going on the lines of what we were talking about a minute ago with myself and you, anything used to try and cool down them containers is a contaminant, whether it's foam, whether it's anything else. What they're going to do, fully submerge the containers to try and help control visit explosions or anything from the batteries blowing up inside, because we all seen batteries go wrong before, and they can be quite messy.
Oh, I completely agree with you, and I'm glad you've asked me to clarify that. So the suppression system within the container is to deal with any fire of any of the components. It's nothing to do with the lithium battery. So whilst if you think of the triangle of fire, we've all done this at school, I've no doubt. You have fire, you have an ignition source, you have heat, and you have oxygen. Traditionally, with a fire extinguisher, you're trying to take one of the sides of the triangle away to put the fire out. The type of suppression system that's within a lithium battery, and I'll come to containers in just a minute. The suppression system is there to effectively mess with the chemistry of combustion, so that it stops the combustion happening in the first place. Rather than taking out one element of the triangle, it's actually stopping the chemical process in the first place. If we then move on to what would be the boundary cooling would be water. So the water, unless the Grendon Lakes themselves are contaminated, and I don't think they are, The water that's going onto the side of the steel container is the water from Grendon Lakes, and it's not contaminated. It won't be contaminated when it goes on. It won't be contaminated when it comes off either, because it's a steel container. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Did I adequately answer your question?
Frank?
What is used to suppress in the event of a fire there? Is it CO2 or chemical?
It's an aerosol-based propellant within the container itself. So there are a couple on the market. There's Novec 1230 and there's also Statex, which are the two trade names. There's also another two coming onto the market at the moment that we're aware of. It's one of the holy grails of engineering design at the moment, is to try and find a suppressant that will extinguish a lithium battery fire, because it's not just us, the world over are having issues with lithium battery fires, particularly e-scooters, e-bikes in particular. So if there's a way to extinguish them, people are looking for it. It will then be, as with all other technology, developed and then put into best containers into the future.
Councillor Elgin?
I don't know how you're going to take this one, but you're contracted by the people to tell us the answers we want to know. So how can we guarantee that we're getting the right answers when you're getting paid by the people putting these equipment into this area?
No, it's a good question. I take it completely the right way. I'm an independent fire safety specialist for BESS, so I don't just work for Statera, I work for a whole range of clients across the whole of the UK. I provide the same answers to the same questions to every planning committee that I'm asked, because you ask broadly the same questions. If I thought it was dangerous, I wouldn't be doing the job that I'm doing. I have a professional credibility that extends back a long time. And it's a good question. Thank you for asking.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
And could I invite Wayne to come back with responses, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think the Speaker has covered virtually everything I was going to say, much better than I would. With regards to the height, the Speaker is quite correct. The shipping containers will be placed on pads. In the committee report, your members will see at paragraph 7.6.5, the blocks will be elevated by 300 to 500 millimetres, and this would take the containers above the level of a potential flood, as modelled as part of the flood risk assessment. So they're quite correct. The containers will be elevated outside. In terms of the solar farm, yes, it hasn't been taken into account. That's a completely separate application. That's with the planning inspectorate at the moment. There would be no requirement for it to be taken into account in terms of the cumulative impact. It's completely separate. I don't think there was anything else. Oh, in terms of need, the applicant has highlighted in their application that there's identified that the application site as being within an area that requires additional backup capabilities to meet peak demand and can provide a critical ancillary services at a strategic substation, an important area of the grid. So the applicant has confirmed that there is a requirement, there is a need for this additional facility. I think that's it. Thanks, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So, for the purpose of debate, and in accordance with the Council's Constitution Meeting Procedure Rules 19.2 and 19.21, I will move the recommendation summarised page 90 of your agenda papers, and to delegate powers to allow officers to grant planning permission subject to the imposition of conditions to securing suitable mitigation to safeguard great Christian roots. Do I have a seconder? nations to safeguard great cresting newts and the imposition of conditions. So do I have a seconder? Yeah, okay, thank you. So I will then invite members to debate them, please. Oh, sorry. Councillor Ben.
Thank you, Chair. So after listening to everything and kind of coming to my own views on this, we're talking about local and regional energy resilience. You know, we've got various developments across the boundary that are going to require additional power. As has been highlighted, this is not related to any other development in the area. This has been identified as needed for the continued growth of the area. It's already next to a very large energy facility, and I guess my closing point is, if not here, then where? We're just moving the problem to somewhere else, and yeah, I'll end with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David.
Thank you, Chair. I came here tonight not very happy with this application. I do know that there has been substantial surface water flooding in the Grendon area. And, you know, I know that it has been more frequent and of a worse scale than has been sort of modelled previously by the Environment Agency. So I was being somewhat sceptical about, you know, 1 in 100-year events, which seem to be popping up rather too frequently these days. As was pointed out, obviously electricity and water don't mix. I am, however, somewhat reassured. And I do appreciate the gentleman, who's a former Chief Fire Officer, who spoke and has allayed a lot of concerns that I had. I note that the Tilbury incident referred to was the actual firefighting was in fact boundary cooling and not directly engaging the fire itself. And being an ex-naval man, I know quite a lot about boundary cooling. It's highly important, and at least on dry land you don't capsize, so that's useful too. Doesn't mean, however, that there aren't genuine safety issues, and it would be remiss to completely rule out the dangers of flooding. I know that the containers are situated at a level that is apparently free from even a 1 in 1,000-year event, which is good, because if it was a 1 in 1,000-year event, I think we'd all have problems in this part of the world. That's good, and it's also worth noting that the containers themselves are, by the nature of the beast, being shipping containers, reasonably water resistant. So that's good. However, access in those flooding conditions is not so, it would be very, very difficult unless we're having fireboats coming up the Nene or Nen. And you know, that is still something which is of some concern, as is, Chair, the genuinely held views that this would cause, you know, some cumulative impact on the existing best storage that's there already, and some impact to the landscape, which is obviously has been taken into consideration in the balance. So essentially, I do see that the developers are trying to make as safe and as practicable a system as possible. Of course, the energy resilience is something that we're going to be talking of more and more as energy demands increase and as the energy mix changes from the previous rather more reliable means to something which fluctuates more. So I'm pretty reassured. I know it's going to be, there is a cumulative impact. I know and share the concerns about the great big Green Hill solar farm, which will dwarf this and the current best storage by miles. And obviously that will be a battle which we will have to fight when the time comes. But I'm not comfortable just turning this down with the recommendations that we already have from the various experts. And I read the Environment Agency's comments with particular interest. And they have, with the conditions that they've put in, they have said they have withdrawn their objections. So I am, as I say, reassured.
Thank you. Any other councillors would like to come in? James?
Yes, I'd like to follow up on Councillor Brackenbury's comments. I generally agree with those. I think the developer is putting in measures to screen the site, and they're also offering high levels of net biodiversity gain. I've been reassured by the ex-fire officer with his what he's told us about the fire suppression system and the reliability of the batteries, and also the IP rating of the containers, the battery containers, which I think are about similar to what a submarine would be. So I'm reassured on those, and the lack of statutory consultation objections. So that's, and also there is the need for battery storage. I know the National Grid infrastructure reinforcement is years behind what the country needs on its progress towards net zero, and so that's good that can help fill the gap on this issue.
Okay, thank you, James. Anybody else like to speak? No. Okay. So you're all aware of what you're voting for. So So I'll go put this to a vote then, and I'll ask for people for. And against, please. The vote is carried. Thank you. We'll have a short adjournment just for a comfort break. Return time of 20:46, please.
fellow.
Right, thank you very much. We're going to restart the meeting. Sorry? Right, we're going to start the meeting, and Councillor Rance is back in the room. Right, item 5. Right, item 5, planning application NW 24-00138 OUT, Glenville Park Phase 2 development site, North Way, Wellingborough, outline for residential-led mixed-use development. I will ask Debbie Kirk to speak, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. This amended application seeks outline planning permission for a residential-led mixed-use development of up to 1,000 homes, including up to 200 affordable dwellings, a sub-phase for up to 25 custom and self-build dwellings, a sub-phase for older persons housing, employment uses of up to 26,118 square metres, including use classes B2 industrial, B8 warehousing, and EG2 research and development of products and processes, and EG3 any industrial process which can be carried out in any residential area without causing detriment to the amenity of the area. A children's day nursery, a sports pitch and changing rooms, green infrastructure, the retention of the Blackberry Fox Covert woodland and ridge and furrow, supporting infrastructure including sustainable surface water drainage ponds, an internal highway network, including a primary street connecting to an existing road in Beaumont Drive in Phase 1, ground modelling and other groundworks as required, forming part of the Wellingborough North Sustainable Urban Extension. All matters are reserved except for the formation of a new access from the A509 New York Way. This application is brought before North Northamptonshire Council's Planning Committee because it's a major strategic development with an environmental impact statement, and part of the site is within the Council's ownership. The Council's constitution states that delegated authority should not be exercised for applications where the Council is the applicant or landowner, in whole or part, except where the proposal is for minor development which accords with the relevant planning policy and to which no objection has been made. The land on which the employment uses are proposed is owned by North Northants Council. Glenvale Park, formerly known as Wellingborough North, is a committed sustainable urban extension consisting of 3,265 dwellings and is a mixed-use development in the growth town of Wellingborough as set out in Northamptonshire's Joint Core Strategy and the plan for the Borough of Wellingborough. In relation to the site's context, an outline planning permission was granted on appeal in February 2010 for a mixed-use development of up to 3,000 dwellings for retail and commercial facilities, non-residential institutions, including a primary school and nurseries, a neighbourhood centre comprising of a transport interchange, non-institutional and community facilities, open spaces and parkland, associated facilities and infrastructure comprising of utilities, gas, electricity, water, sewerage and telecommunications, and the diversion to existing utilities where necessary, and a reserve corridor for the Isham to Wellingborough improvement. A further outline planning permission was granted on the 14th of January 2013, and a variation to the outline planning permission was granted on the 15th of March 2018. The 28 permission has been implemented and the construction of Phase 1 is underway, with 1,500 dwellings approved and approximately 800 dwellings completed. A 66-bed care home, the local centre, a primary school, a day nursery for children between the ages of 0 and 5, a community centre, playing pitches, primary infrastructure and sustainable urban drainage ponds and swales and public open space have been completed. The 2018 permission required all reserve matters applications to be made within 10 years of the date of the original permission, which dated from the 14th of January 2013. That period has expired and reserve matters consents have only been granted in respect of Phase 1, and no reserve matters applications have been made in relation to Phases 2 or 3. This has led to the submission of a new outline planning permission now seeking to deliver Phase 2. This new application broadly relates to the same area of land as Phase 2 under the 2018 permission, but seeks to extend the area of residential development and increase the number of dwellings from 700 to 1,000. The playing pitches have also been resited and reduced in number. The site, for the purposes of this outline planning application, occupies an area of approximately 81.12 hectares of land to the north of the growth town of Wellingborough and the north of the A509 New York Way and Hardwick Road. To the south lies the Park Farm industrial estate and housing. To the east lies the Phase 1 development of Glenvale Park, and to the north lies open countryside, and to the northwest lies the hamlet of Great Harridon, and to the northeast lies the hamlet of Great Harridon, and to the northwest lies the village of Little Harridon. The application is required to be determined on its own merits. However, The planning history of the site, including the 2018 permission, can be a material consideration. The application has been accompanied by a series of framework plans which are sought to be approved as part of this application. I'm now going to take you through a series of drawings which have accompanied the application. This first drawing shows the site location, which includes Park Farm Way Industrial Estate. There's Wellingborough Grange barns, which are outside of the site area but surrounded by the Phase 2 development. And over here is the Phase 1 development, which is currently being constructed. And this area of land here has been granted full planning permission for 250 dwellings and is currently under construction, but lies outside of the wider Glenvale Park Sustainable Urban Extension. This is an aerial image of the site with a red line, and you will see this is existing woodland that's being retained as part of the development, known as Blackberry Fox Covert. Over here is the access link to Beaumont Road, which is the existing road in serving Phase 1 of Glenvale Drive. And this is the location of the new access of Nealt Way, and here are the Grade 2 listed barns. This is a land use parameter plan which is sought to be approved as part of this new outline planning application, and it shows the area here of open space, quite substantial open space. This is the Isham to Wellingborough improvement corridor. This is being retained, however, this lies outside of the application site. Here is the woodland. The yellow is the residential subphases. There's a sports pitch. Just here is where the proposed children's day nursery is going. Parcel R2 is where the self-build and custom-build housing is going. Parcel R4 is where the older person's housing is proposed to go. And this purple land is the employment land, and this is the land that's owned by North Northants Council. This framework plan is an access and movement, and the key items here are the two access links, one from Phase 1 and the new one into Phase 2, and it also shows the footpath links that would be created as part of this development in principle. This is a building heights parameter plan and shows the heights of the buildings up to a maximum of 10 metres out on the edge where you've got the green space being created and closest to the open countryside. Then going up to 12 metres, 3 stories, and the industrial would be up to 15 metres in height, and the custom build or self-build is up to 2 stories in height. This is the green infrastructure parameter plan showing where the public open space would be located. The community orchard, there's one here and over here. The orange is the play areas that are being proposed as part of the development's 3 play areas. This is the woodland and the sports pitch, and down here is the allotments. This is a green infrastructure area drawing, and this shows the areas of the different types of open space which would be provided, under the open space supplementary planning document, which includes allotments, play areas, natural and semi-natural parks, and linear and amenity green space. This is an illustrative concept master plan and is an illustration of one way of how the site could be developed, and this drawing is not to be approved as part of this application because it's purely for illustrative purposes. This drawing shows the Phase 2 access link from Phase 1 Beaumont Road. These are flats which have recently been constructed and are currently occupied. And this link crosses the IWIMP corridor, Isham to Wellingborough Improvement Corridor at the current ground level. This drawing shows an initial Phase 2 construction and traffic route plan, and the initial construction traffic would come to the site from Newark Way, along Glenvale Drive and Beaumont Road, and then into Phase 2. This shows the Phase 2 proposed site access layout and signalised junction from Newark Way. This is the Phase 2 Spine Road roundabout with the Isham to Wellingborough Improvement roundabout showing here, and it's purely illustrative. This is the road into Phase 2, and with this roundabout, it goes into the Phase 2 development, and then there is also a link that goes into the Isham to Wellingborough Improvement Corridor. So this development would not prejudice the delivery of that corridor should it come forward. This slide shows the improvements which are being proposed, have been proposed by the applicant and would be delivered as part of the off-site mitigation highway works to mitigate the effects of the additional traffic generated by this development. And this slide shows the proposed mitigation works for Junction 5, which is the A509 Allingbury Road and the slips. This is the A509 Kettering Road here. This is the slips, which goes down to Grendon Hall, and Great Harrowden Hall, and this is Allingbury Road, which goes through Great Harrowden down to Little Harrowden. This is an aerial photograph of the site and shows the location of the Grade 2 listed Grange farmhouse and the barns which have been converted into residential developments. And over here is where the Phase 1 development is currently being constructed. And these lines are where archaeological digs have taken place. This image shows the Phase 1 development. Here is the link across the IWIMP corridor from Phase 2 into Phase 1, and you will see that this is the community centre, there's a children's day nursery that's been provided and is up and running, primary schools up and running, playing pitches, serving Phase 1, and they would also serve Phase 2 as well. And this is the local centre that has an anchor store of the co-op, and it also has a Bewitched drive-through and 2 takeaways currently and a tanning salon. And this is the Redwell Leisure Centre where residents currently utilise their indoor leisure facilities, and there's a outdoor multi-use football pitch over here as well. And this image just shows the context of the site. Paragraph 8 of the MPPF sets out 3 overarching objectives: social, economic and environmental, which are interdependent and need to be pursued in mutually supportive ways so that opportunities can be taken to secure net gains across each of the different objectives. In terms of the key economic benefits of this proposal, they would be the delivery of a range of land uses, including housing, employment, a children's day nursery, a sports pitch, green infrastructure and supporting infrastructure on phase 2 of the allocated Glenvale Park Sustainable Urban Extension, which is a significant benefit to which substantial weight should be attached. The proposal includes the delivery of both affordable and market housing, up to 1,000 dwellings and up to 200 affordable dwellings, making a valuable and significant contribution to meet North Northamptonshire's and housing need and the need of the growth town of Wellingborough. And it would also meet the delivery targets set out in Table 5 of Policy 29 of the JCS. The 20% affordable housing being delivered would be policy compliant and include 70% rented and 30% low-cost market housing. A planning obligation has been agreed to restrict a minimum number of affordable housing units in any sub-phase to 15% and the maximum to 25%. Currently, 223 affordable dwellings have been delivered in Phase 1 in accordance with the percentages set out in the Section 106 agreement associated with the 2018 permission. In addition, an uplift of 100 affordable dwellings have been provided through funding from Homes England on a number of the sub-phases. The proposal would make a significant contribution of new jobs for both existing and future residents to the growth town of Wellingborough and North Northamptonshire, including an extension to the Park Farm Industrial Estate through the delivery of up to 26,118 square metres of additional employment floor space. The proposal provides opportunities for new industrial, storage and distribution, research and development, light industrial uses, supporting the economic growth and productivity in North Northamptonshire as set out in policies 11.1a and D, 22a, C and 23a and B of the JCS and policy 2f of the plan for the Borough of Wellingborough. The proposal would benefit the local economy through job creation during the construction phase and associated supply businesses, a new homes bonus and expenditure associated with the future residents of the scheme. The 2018 permission did include a condition that sought no dwellings within phases 2 and 3 to be occupied until the Isham to Wellingborough Improvement Road had been completed and brought into use, save if Northamptonshire County Council, now North Northants Council, serve notice on the local planning authority that the Isham to Wellingborough Improvement Road is not required and that alternative improvements to the A509 are required. The responsibility for delivering the Isham to Wellingborough improvement lies with North Northamptonshire Council. The applicant has provided a transport assessment which demonstrates that Phase 2 can be delivered without the need for the Isham to Wellingborough Improvement Road being provided through off-site mitigation works to the existing A509 Newark Way and Kettering Road. The transport assessment demonstrated that the development would result in a severe impact on the local highway network unless appropriate mitigation is secured. The applicant has agreed to directly deliver schemes to the Harrowden Crossroads and the Ockendale roundabout on the strategic highway network to mitigate the harm caused by the traffic generated by the proposed development to the existing local and strategic highway network by reducing queuing and potential delays at peak times to commuters and businesses. The applicant has used data to evaluate the level of trips associated with the Phase 2 development. which are likely to route through the surrounding minor roads and the less strategic network during the peak AM and PM hours. Whilst the findings demonstrated there is a considerable amount of rerouting of background traffic in highway terms, the impact on these roads cannot be considered severe in highway capacity terms. The local highway authority has not sought further assessment as the number of additional trips do not meet nationally recognised thresholds for such requirements. It should be noted that the modelling is the worst case without mitigation, but officers consider the mitigation proposed would improve the operation at the Ockendale and the Harrowden Crossroads significantly compared to the scenario which has been modelled. The economic benefits of the additional housing and employment development on an allocated site in the growth town of Wellingborough and in North Northamptonshire is considered to outweigh the harm caused by the additional traffic generated to the local and strategic highway network prior to the agreed off-site mitigation schemes at Harrowden Crossroads and the Ockendale being delivered and ultimately result in nil detriment and betterment to the existing strategic and local highway network, subject to the securing of the off-site highway works being secured through Section 106 legal agreement. The proposed development is considered on balance to be in accordance with the principles set out under policies 10A, C, D of the Joint Core Strategy and policy 2B and G of the Plan for the Borough of Wellingborough. The proposal includes a new principal access off the A509 to serve the Phase 2 development in accordance with policy Site 2K of the Plan for the Borough of Wellingborough being provided prior to the 200th occupation of any dwelling. Additionally, the primary street would connect to an existing road in Phase 1, ensuring that in accordance with Site 2B of the Plan for the Borough of Wellingborough, the proposals will be integrated with the wider area and provide linkages to existing facilities in Phase 1, such as the primary school, the community centre, the local centre and sports pitches, to which significant weight should be attached. The proposal includes a bus service due to commence serving Phase 1 in the autumn of 2025, being extended to serve Phase 2 prior to the 200th occupation of a residential dwelling in Phase 2. The development would be in accordance with policies 8A, 2, 4, 8B1, 10A and B, 15C of the Joint Core Strategy and policy 2B and G of the Plan for the Borough of Wellingborough. Key social benefits include the significant contribution, the delivery of affordable housing being delivered with a mix of tenures in accordance with policy 30A1 and 2 and D of the Joint Core Strategy. All new dwellings would meet the nationally described space standards according with policy 30B of the Joint Core Strategy and ensure an appropriate standard of living for all. Policy 30C of the Joint Core Strategy requires new dwellings to meet category 2 of the national accessibility standards, with a proportion meeting category 3 of the accessibility standards to enable wheelchair accessibility. Where there is affordable housing being provided for rent, 10% of those should meet the M43B fully wheelchair accessible category. These can take the form of bungalows, ground floor flats or housing depending on the overall mix and site constraints. A condition has been agreed to ensure that 90% of the proposed dwellings would be constructed in accordance with Category 2 of the National Accessibility Standards and 10% to Category 3 of the National Accessibility Standards. The proposal would result in the delivery of housing for older persons for which there is an identified need and would enable people to remain in their own homes, and in freeing up under-occupied housing by enabling older people to downsize to more suitable housing in accordance with Policy 30F of the Joint Core Strategy and Policy H3 of the Plan for the Borough of Wellingborough. The proposal would provide a bespoke phase of custom and self-build dwellings for which there is an identified need in North Northamptonshire. The proposal would deliver up to approximately 25 self-build and custom-built dwellings, which would equate to 2.5% of the totality of the housing proposed, although this would not strictly accord with Policy 30G of the Joint Core Strategy and Policies H5 and Site 2E of the Plan for the Borough of Wellingborough. It proposes an under-provision of self-build and custom-build. This needs to be weighed against other material considerations in the planning balance. The proposal would support and enhance community facilities through the on-site delivery of a children's day nursery for preschool children to meet the arising needs from the development and for future expansion, and is in accordance with Policy 7A and 10A of the Joint Core Strategy. The proposal would deliver substantial areas of green space, including an adult sports pitch with changing rooms, local educational play areas, allotments, parks, community gardens, linear green corridors, new footways, both within and connecting to the wider area for use by future residents of the development and existing residents, supporting their health, well-being and social aspects in accordance with Policy G14, G15A and Site 2H of the Plan for the Borough of Wellingborough, to which substantial weight is attached. The proposal would secure financial contributions through a Section 106 legal agreement to mitigate any deficiencies to community facilities as a result of the proposed development. These include primary school, secondary school, special educational needs, policing, fire and rescue, a swimming pool, indoor sports facility and primary healthcare in accordance with Policy 7A, 10A and C of the Joint Core Strategy and Policy Site 2A of the Plan for the Borough of Wellingborough. The proposed, in terms of the environmental benefits, the proposed biodiversity net gain for this development would deliver a significantly enhanced on-site biodiversity and green infrastructure compared to that currently found on the site. The proposal includes the retention of the existing Blackberry Fox Covert potential wildlife site woodland in its entirety and provides appropriate buffer around the woodland. The scheme includes appropriate biodiversity mitigation measures for protected species who have been identified currently using the site, including a skylark mitigation area as part of the circular loop to be provided, to which significant weight should be attached. The development would comply with Policy 4 of the Joint Core Strategy in relation to biodiversity enhancements. And the proposal would create extensive site-wide circulation system throughout the site and would provide links to areas beyond the site. Key issues such as habitat creation, avoidance and dog walking routes have been accounted for in the strategic proposals. These proposals would ensure future residents and those existing residents living close to the boundaries of the application site pursue recreational activities on site and reduce the number of potential visits for recreational activities to the special protection area proposed, and would comply with Policy 4D of the Joint Core Strategy, advice in the Upper Nen Valley gravel pits, visitor access study, footprint ecology and the Upper Nen Valley gravel pit special protection area for bird disturbance study and the wild frontier ecology. The surface water strategy includes a sustainable urban drainage management train approach, including swales, filter drains and landscaped detention basins, which all form part of the overall landscape strategy for the site, thereby reducing flood risk, improving water quality and promote environmental benefits for the future residents.